this brief dialogue here, I wanted to go over episode 12, my plans for the boat, and episode 13. Now, if you remember correctly, in episode 12, I finally finished adding all the foam core to the boat. This was a huge milestone for me, as when I bought the boat originally, I thought it was a sail-worthy boat, but little did I know that under all the fiberglass I had rotted core, I had rotted plywood. Everything was pretty much useless inside, and I decided to, back then it was over some deliberation, I decided to get the resources, figure out how to restore this boat to better than working order. Now my original plan and my plans now are still to take the boat from the east coast of Florida, cross the Gulf Stream into the Bahamas, and really just figure out if I like the sailing lifestyle. Growing up in Florida, I'm used to being in the salt water and the sun, and I think the sailing life might fit me pretty well, but this small 22-foot sailboat is one of the smallest investments I could make to figure out if I like sailing, and if I do, I'll probably purchase a bigger boat and maybe a live-aboard boat as well, but this 22-foot boat will fit me for now. Now, going back to episode 12, after finishing all the foam core, I ended up cutting hatches for storage inside of all the areas that could fit them inside the boat. Now, this is really going to be useful in the future when I store gear, whether it's freediving gear or provisions or pots and pans or anything like that inside the boat. Now, this is going to make it a good weekender boat. Maybe if I design it correctly, I can get a few weeks out of it as well. It's not going to be a full live-aboard boat, but just having storage and hatches anywhere inside the boat is useful. Yeah, that was another huge milestone, and it really just hit home how far I've come on this boat since day one, where it was completely bare and basically a naked hull. So yeah, episode 12 was a good episode, and I hope you guys check that one out. It'll be in the links below as well. So I covered what I wanted to do with this boat. I really want to take it to Florida, to the Bahamas, and maybe even around Florida if possible, just to figure out, one, how to sail. You know, I don't have much sailing experience, and this is, I think, the perfect boat for me to learn on. And two, just to see if I like the lifestyle of living on water. You know, I've lived on land my whole life, but I've always been surrounded by water, so I think this little boat will maybe give me a window into an alternative lifestyle living off grid, and that's the idea with this channel, and hopefully it can continue to progress, and with these videos we'll see more of those type of experiences. Now, in episode 13, I continue to create templates for the Galley Shelf area, as well as create a tabletop template that'll be used in the future episodes for my kitchen area, I guess. But you'll see later on in episode 13, I continue to add the galley shelf that I create with these templates. Now, using the same methods, the stir sticks and hot glue, which work actually quite well to create these templates, I go ahead and create vertical templates for the second and the third bed that I added in the previous episodes, and these are just used for vertical support. They'll also help create that rigid center line that I'm looking for to support the keel of the boat. Now, this boat is actually going to be really strong when it's all said and done, as you may be able to notice through a lot of the episodes. Now, from here, I go ahead and add 2 layers of 1708 to the entire hull of the boat. This is really just for my own peace of mind, and kind of just going with the entire theme of the boat, just making it really strong. The 2 layers of 1708 are going to replace the balsa core that was on the hull of the boat that I removed, which was completely saturated in water. After that, I go ahead and cut access holes in that vertical galley shelf I inserted in episode 10. This is going to allow me to easily insert the galley shelf, which I created using the templates in the beginning of episode 13. Just gives me a little access hand holes, and will eventually be used for either drawers or some sort of closing door to store items in the galley area. Yeah, so I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. There's a lot of good content, there's a lot of good information in here. Stick around for the rest of the episode. I think you'll get some enjoyment out of it, and maybe you'll learn something as well. So yeah, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you're new to this channel, and thanks for watching. Alright, so welcome to the extended version of episode 13. Here you can see the galley shelf being created using stir sticks and hot glue, as well as the galley tabletop. Now I continue to employ these methods throughout the entire episode and future episodes to come. So once I get the tabletop template complete, I go ahead and do a dry fit of the sink that I had purchased. Now I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. I do end up making a new sink in the future episodes. So after completing the galley area of the boat, I go ahead and make a few more templates for the vertical bed supports inside the boat. So once all the templates are completed, I go ahead and check the fit of the cuts, the second bed extension you just saw there, as well as the galley tabletop, the galley shelf, and the 2 vertical bed supports. So if you see on the galley shelf here, there's a little bit of a gap. Now I go ahead and take care of that with some grinding to the back side of the galley shelf so it ends up matching the angle of the hole and that gap eventually closes off. From the galley, I end up moving over to the vertical bed supports. Now you see there's a little bit of a tight squeeze there, but a little grinding takes care of any miscalculations that might have occurred. All in all, everything ends up fitting pretty well. So I begin the process of reinforcing the hole using 2 layers of 1708 throughout. Now I created this drawing here as a reference for the cuts that need to take place. I continue on with my rambles about how I'm going to cut these pieces and where exactly I want to put them and the techniques I use, which is basically laying down a layer of epoxy and then a thickened layer of epoxy to plug any bubbles or holes that'll end up, or impurities I guess, in the hole, and then laying the 2 layers of 1708 over that, which creates a sandwich-like structure of epoxy, thickened epoxy, and then the 2 layers of 1708, which really lends towards a rigid hole. The cloth for the front part of the boat laid down and start laying epoxy in there, and hopefully everything will go smoothly. Yeah, it's hot out here. It's probably 90 degrees. Humidity of like 80 or something. I'm sweating. I'm gonna put the suit on and start sweating even more. It's gonna be miserable, but it's gotta get done. Hopefully the epoxy doesn't start curing because of the heat before I get done with anything, but I'm gonna try to move fast, and I think this is really gonna strengthen the whole of the boat. So, let's do it. So I put the initial layer of epoxy down on the hole. I then go ahead and create a thickened epoxy and then lay it down over this
initial layer of epoxy to fill any gaps or bubbles that'll appear when I lay the first layer of 1708 down. So after the 1708 is soaked, I go ahead and start the process of laying the layer of fiberglass on the hull of the boat. As you can see here, I got it wrong the first time and had to switch it up to the other side. And then, of course, right there, that's exactly why my GoPro is destroyed, because of all the epoxy accidents that happened to it while I'm building this boat. So for the second layer of 1708, the process is the same. I go ahead and just soak the 1708 and then lay it down on the hull and squeegee out any bubbles that remain. It leaves this almost perfect surface of soaked epoxy and fiberglass that really dries extremely strong and is really going to make me feel comfortable when I'm out on the water.
I've actually started to provision for, I guess, the holes in my galley support. In order to do that, I had to map out the floor and figure out exactly where everything's going to lie on the boat, because I have such small space requirements. And as you can see down here, I have my porter potty, and I've marked on the actual fiberglass of the hole where it's gonna lay. And then my bilge pump, I have a low profile bilge pump. It's gonna go right here. So I'll have my porta potty and then the bilge, and then it's drawn out a line where I want the next support bulkhead to be, and it'll be right around there. And then it's gonna come out to be about that height. Just stab myself with the jigsaw. So that's about exactly where everything's gonna lay. You know, I haven't really taken a tape measure to anything in here. Kind of just winged it as I've gone through it, and it's come out pretty good. So I'm not really gonna complain about anything. The idea is just to get in the water and have a functioning boat with really good support. So I think everything's laid out pretty well. You can see I've started to cut the hole for the Galley shelving support. So I'm going to do one of these here, probably another one here and here. I have those mapped out a little bit, and then since my cooktop is going to go here and the sink's going to go right there, I'm basically going to try to put the galley gusher or the foot pedal for the sink right there. And I'm designing this. I went through a few different, I guess, revisions or decisions on what I'm going to do with the floor. And I've kind of just figured out that I'm going to try to grind these bolts down flush with the floor and have almost like a no floor. So, and then I'll reinforce all this with fiberglass. I think the bulkheads that I did here and up there, and then this galley support is going to be more than enough to support the keel. What was on here before was really weak and not really a good support for the keel, so I think I've reinforced it far more than it originally had. So yeah, that's what's going on in the boat. It's working. My GoPro is currently injured. I took that to the Springs the other day and had a waterproof case for it, but it ended up getting water in it, and then since it's been epoxied to death, none of the doors actually closed, so I was leaving them off when I was recording, and all the water got in the GoPro and then flooded it. But luckily, I guess GoPro must epoxy their chips on their circuit board, because I took it all apart and let it dry out overnight, and it started up the next day. But I don't have it charged or anything, and I'm still kind of letting it dry out. Took the battery right out after that, just to let it continue to dry out, because that's my only GoPro. So yeah, I'm gonna use my cell phone and see if I can get some footage of me cutting some of these things out. Alright, see ya.
Going back to all the other episodes, the process for inserting the galley shelf is just the same as any other. I start with the thin layer of epoxy, then go to the thickened epoxy to add a little bit to both the hull of the boat and the piece that I'm going to insert, and then just smush everything in and make sure I have enough thickened epoxy in all the cracks and crevices, and then take a layer of 1708 and put it on each joint. From the looks of it, adding the galley shelf would seem to be a little tricky, but it actually fit right in that little hole and turned in just perfectly and sat right where it was supposed to. And of course I go ahead and add a layer of 1708 to the bottom side of the galley shelf just to make sure that everything's reinforced. And that wraps up episode 13, the extended cut. I really hope you guys enjoyed that, and I thank you all for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up as well if you enjoyed the video.